Hi, and welcome back. We are now in season 2, episode 1 of the Two Chiefs, One Mike podcast. I'm Chief Mike Hawkins.
And I am Scott Hughes, and we've made it to season number dos. Who would have thought?
19 episodes, something like
19 episodes in 2025, and we are kicking off 2026 with a phenomenal guest. And due to some technical difficulties, because we are just cops, this episode may or may not have video. We're not quite sure yet, but we can guarantee you that on the other end of this podcast is a gentleman by the name of Kirk Dinkheller. And Kirk has agreed to join us on this podcast to share the story of one of the most horrific police videos you'll ever see. And his son, Kyle Dinkheller, back in January of 1998, paid the ultimate sacrifice when he was murdered on a traffic stop in Lawrence County, Georgia. And for my officers who are listening, you will recall this video. You've certainly seen it in training. Again, it's one of the worst videos you've ever seen. And Kyle pulls over this white pickup truck on the side of the road in rural Lawrence County, Georgia, and he's executed. His father has joined us on the Two Chiefs One Mike podcast to talk about his son Kyle, talk about the events leading up to that horrific tragedy, and really to dispel some rumors, set the record straight on a few other issues. And we're just glad you agreed to join us, Kirk. So thanks for being here, brother.
Hey, my pleasure. Anytime.
So, Kirk, before we get into the whole story of what happened, what everybody's seen, why don't you give a little credence to Kyle himself and tell us about him as a person, him as a police officer? Give us a little background on who he was.
Well, start with Kyle's just a typical kid. I mean, he didn't really grow up wanting to be a cop. It wasn't until he got older and was working with me installing air conditioners, and he happened to help me install an air conditioner on the sheriff of Lawrence County's house. Introduced him, they talked, and he got hired on as a jailer, spent his time in the jail, and then went to mandate, became a deputy in Lawrence County, and absolutely loved being a cop. I mean, that was the best job he could have ever had. And he loved protecting and serving like every officer does. He didn't do it for the money or the politics. He just did it for the people of Lawrence County until he couldn't do it no more.
So we know the event took place January 12th, 1998. How long had Kyle been a police officer up until that point? And this was his first and only police job, correct?
Correct. It probably total, he might have been there between the jail and the road, maybe 4 years. That was it. He was 22 when he got killed, so he'd only been on the road then maybe a year and a half, I think it was, maybe a year.
And what was he just regular patrol? Was he doing interdiction? What kind of role did he have there at the sheriff's office?
He was in interdiction. He was on a unit called the ICE unit for interstate criminal enforcement. Him and there was 4 of them and a sergeant, 2 at a time on shift. And he just ran the interstate, stopping speeders, drunks, anything with drugs or anything, just interstate enforcement.
Now, Kyle, he was married, correct?
Yes, sir.
And
he was married, had a 1.5-year-old daughter, and that was his life. And then the day he was killed, his wife was fitting to tell him that she was pregnant with their son.
She found out that day?
Yeah, she found out that morning, and of course, she wanted to surprise him when he got off a shift. Well, she didn't get the opportunity to.
So I won't mention the piece of shit's name who did this, but he was driving down, what interstate was it?
16.
So he's on I-16, and if my notes are correct, Kirk, he's doing 98 in a 55-mile-an-hour zone. Is that accurate?
Yes, he would. That's right. That's correct.
So stop me when I screw this up. Kyle clocks him coming the opposite direction. So he's using what we call moving radar. So Kyle's going one way, POS is coming the other. Kyle clocks him at 98 miles an hour, and Kyle hits the median. In other words, does a U-turn through the grass,
right,
to pursue this coward. And then, and this is where I think so let me pause real fast. So, I've been teaching the academy since the year after this happened, and you and I talked offline that I've probably seen this video. I mean, I don't know, 1,000 times, and I still, to this day, I still show it in certain classes because Kyle's tragedy has saved so many police officers. But we'll come back to that. But in showing the video around the country and in training classes, you start hearing rumors, you start hearing this and that, and it's an honor to have you on the show because hopefully you're going to help us kind of dispel, hey, what was BS and what was factual. So I was told that when he hit the median and he started to go after the POS, that the POS had actually taken an off ramp and was going back across the interstate. So Kyle's in his cruiser, and he's going the same direction the guy's going. Looks up and sees him driving across the bridge. So then Kyle has to hit the turnaround, or has to cut through the grass a second time.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And then he goes, and then he gets the off ramp, and then that's when the coward turns right, and then that's when the video starts. And
but at that point, when Kyle gets off the interstate, he's sitting right there. When he makes a right-hand turn on a road called Whipple's Crossing, he stops to make sure Kyle could see him. And then when he sees Kyle, then he takes off down Whipple's Crossing about a mile. It was about a mile from the last house because there's only 3 or 4 houses on that road. So he traveled probably maybe a mile past the last house and then decided to pull over.
I'd never heard that.
Yeah.
Okay. So wow. So he wanted Kyle to pull him over.
Right.
He lured him in.
He lured him in there because, I could jump forward to where during the trial, he said that his purpose for that day was to kill a cop. It just happened to be Kyle. It could have been any cop on the interstate. He wanted some cop to stop him, and Kyle was the one that stopped him.
So Kyle gets behind him on Whipple's Creek, and this guy goes for a mile and pulls over. As Kyle's following him on Whipple's Creek, if you know, is he on the radio saying, hey, I've got a truck that's not pulling over, or do we know?
From what everybody has told me that was there actually that day, Kyle was constantly on the radio letting know where he was at, what the man was doing, and that he didn't call for backup or anything until, as you see in the video, when dumbass gets out of his truck and starts doing a jig in the middle of the road.
Right.
That's when Kyle called 1078.
And that, of course, if you're listening to this and you're not familiar with the video by description, as soon as Kirk says the guy does the jig, he does, this silly dance in the middle of the roadway, people immediately recognize that video. So the coward's doing the dance in the middle of the road. Kyle, at one point, he's calling for assistance. Looks like Kyle maybe starts to think about going up and going hands-on, and is like, you know what, that probably isn't the best option. Kyle pulls his baton, does maybe 1 or 2 baton strikes, we think.
Yep, he got him on the ground, and he could have cuffed him right then. And all the times that I've shown this, I'm screaming, handcuff him, beat his ass, do whatever you got to do. But Kyle let him up, and I know why he let him up. And that was because of what happened 2 weeks prior to Kyle getting killed.
So that's a great segue then, Kirk. So 2 weeks before Kyle pulls over this individual, why don't you tell our listeners what Kyle went through there at the sheriff's office?
what happened was Kyle and his partners were going to a wreck on the interstate. Lights and sirens. A car in front of Kyle would not move over for an emergency vehicle. Kyle's sergeant told him to pull the car over. So Kyle pulled him over, chastised him, didn't write him a ticket, then went on to the accident. Didn't think nothing of it. The next day, sheriff calls him in the office, and unbeknownst to Kyle or anybody else, the man was a big financial supporter of the sheriff to his campaign for sheriff and stuff like that. He raised hell that Kyle talked to him rude. Well, the sheriff had access to Kyle's report or whatever the case may be, but he made Kyle write an apology letter to the man and hand deliver the apology letter. It upset Kyle pretty bad, but he said he talked to other officers that were there, seasoned officers, and they told him, boy, you better just go ahead and do it, suck it up. Otherwise, you're either going to get fired or put back into jail. So just suck it up. And he wrote the letter and hand delivered it. And 2 weeks later, here we are. That's why we're doing this.
So Kirk, obviously this is a long process. The court process played out over 2 years. It was January of 2000 where the subject was found guilty. So this information that you found out, did you know at the time, or is this something that came along during the years after the trial? How did you come to find out this information?
It came out, and a matter of fact, it came out from a good friend of mine, Patrick Schaefer, who did the documentary, because he left no stone unturned. And he had my blessing to find out whatever he could. If Kyle was wrong, or if Kyle had got, I don't care. I just want everything out in the open. And he's the one that found out about the apology letter, and he showed it to me. He showed me every bit of information he had while he was making the documentary. And so it had been several years before I found out.
And that documentary that you're speaking of, I happen to own. And I bought
Right there.
this. Yeah, I bought
That's it.
this. I purchased this. I don't know, Kirk. It came out in 2019 or so, I believe. So I think I bought it probably 2019 or early 2020 because unbeknownst to you at the time, I've been fascinated is probably not the right word, but fascinated by Kyle's case. And
Right.
when I say fascinated, I'm going to use in this context, and that is using it for training law enforcement officers on just how sideways things can go that fast. And you and I have talked several times now offline, and I alluded to this earlier, and I'll say it again, probably say it 10 more times. The amount of people that have seen Kyle's video that have had their lives changed, we'll never know, right?
Right.
The officers that Kyle has saved when an officer is on a traffic stop late at night or in the afternoon, he gets that gut feeling, I'm confident that officers have thought about what Kyle went through, and that those images and Kyle screaming are just ingrained in their brains.
Right.
I
You see,
know.
the bad thing is that every scream you hear, I hear 24 hours a day, and I can tell you what each scream was. Like the first scream you hear in the video, that was Kyle getting shot in the knee where it severed his right leg. That's the first set of screams you hear. The other ones, I can tell you every single one of them and where the shots were located. So, yeah.
Kurt,
I know it saved a ton of officers.
yeah, I don't, having 3 sons myself, I could not imagine the thought of that. But to Scott's point, I think as officers, we hear that too. And, somewhere in the back of your mind on a quiet night somewhere when you're pulling somebody over, it has saved people, countless people that we can never even put a number on. But
Right.
everybody knows that. But, you talk about that, the documentary, as I do a little search right here, you can get it on Amazon Prime Video. They have it. If you have Amazon Prime, most people do now. So it's got good reviews, 9.1 out of 10.
Yeah. It's a good documentary because it tells you the tragic side, but it also gives you not a lighter side, but let you know what kind of person Kyle was. And that was the whole purpose that Patrick wanted to show. And so I couldn't be more pleased with it. And I've talked about that a lot of times. And so we'll let the video do the talking.
So the incident itself, you know, it's over in a matter of minutes. The coward flees the scene. He again, correct me when I mess up, Kirk. He flees the scene. He drives 20 miles or so away to some
no.
No,
I'm gonna stop you right. He only drove 2 miles to his property in
2
Lawrence
miles.
County.
Okay.
He had a little shack. He had a little shack in the woods.
Okay, you're right. 2 miles. Kyle and his partner were 20 miles away. Is that right?
Yeah, they were
Okay.
They were 26 miles apart.
Yeah. So they're 20. Yeah. So the coward drives 2 miles away. Kyle did get some rounds off, and he did get one shot to the suspect's abdomen. It was a non-fatal wound. Of course, he doesn't know that. The suspect doesn't know it's a survivable wound. But he has a German Shepherd in the truck with him. He gets to his property a couple miles down the road, wraps himself up in a tarp, and presumably he just lays there thinking he's gonna bleed out. Now this is 28 years ago, so this is back before internet and all of that stuff. How did they track him down?
Well, what I've learned and what I know is that they searched the shack first, and they found weapons in the shack. They found some drugs, which was just marijuana and shit, but they couldn't find him. But his truck was there. Kyle Sergeant, Darren Mitchum, who is now the sheriff in Twiggs County, him and another deputy by the name of Tennyson, they kept hearing a dog barking. Now, you're in the country, in the woods. All these are southern rednecks. Darren said, if we find that dog, we're going to find this guy. Helicopters were up. Helicopter kept finding the heat signature, but it was just a dog. The dog would never move. So Darren and a GBI agent and a couple other deputies started heading towards a dog. They got close, and Darren told me that he picked up a stick and threw it at the dog. Dog would not leave. So they waited till daylight, went over there, raised the tarp up, and the shithead was laying under the tarp, and they took him into custody.
How did they get from the traffic stop location to the house, to the shack?
Well, what GBI officer ran his name and had the courthouse open up to see if he owned any property in Lawrence County.
So they got the plate number when he made the traffic stop. He called the license plate out. They ran the plate,
Exactly.
Got the name,
Right.
Opened up the courthouse. Okay.
Right. And got court records to show he owned property, and they knew it was only right down the road.
Got you.
So Kurt, we talk about the sheriff's department there. Give us an idea of what size department this is. How many sworn officers? How many on the road? What does this look like for this agency?
Well, at Kyle's, when Kyle was there, they had probably close to, if I had to guess, close to 50 altogether, 50 deputies. But then after Kyle died, 9 of them left. They just quit because if their families asked them to quit because of what happened to Kyle. They didn't want something to happen to their loved one.
So let me dig a little deeper in that, because I don't know the answer. Is it because of what happened, the shooting, or was there something more on the response from the department as well? Because sometimes that can have an effect on officers wanting to leave, wanting to stay. And Scott and I talk a lot about that, a lot about culture in agencies. What was the response like from the sheriff, from the agency to you, or even to the officers, if you know, after the incident?
Well, as far as to me and my family, they were very supportive of us, and they tried to take care of us. But the officers that I've talked to that have left and gone on to other agencies or other professions, a lot of them half of them, I'd say, left because of what happened to Kyle. The other half left because a combination of Kyle and upper management or command staff, if you want to call it that. Because this is just my opinion, and I believe the sheriff was the sheriff, and he cared about his guys, but I think he was more worried about what the constituents and his donors would think, and he catered to them more than he did the officers, and that's why a lot of them left, in my opinion.
That's a shame.
Yeah.
That's just a shame. You talked about 9 deputies leaving, and I know you're really close with, I believe, the first arriving deputy on scene, Deputy
Don Madigan.
Mitchum, Don Madigan. Thank you. You still talk to him, Kirk?
Oh yeah, I talk to him. Matter of fact, I talk to him once a week, and eat dinner with him once every 2 weeks.
How's he doing today?
He's doing good. He still struggles, and like it took him a long time to really kind of look at me and make eye contact. Any other time he'd be looking over my head or looking to the left, to the right. He wouldn't make eye contact with me. One day I made him make eye contact, and he said, "I just can't look at you because I see Kyle." He says, "I'll get over it." Well, it took him 5 years to get over it.
Wow.
So
how are the grandkids?
my grandkids,
Yeah.
Kyle's kids,
Kyle's kids. Yeah.
they're doing great now. I mean, they're thriving right now. I mean, they still have questions that I have to answer because, especially my grandson, he never knew his dad. All he's seen is videos, pictures. So I'm the one that's kind of like filling in the blanks for him. And my granddaughter the same way. So yeah, they're doing really good. Granddaughter's got a baby now. Kyle's a grandpa, don't even know it. So it's pretty awesome. So
Go
Yeah.
ahead, Mike.
So we look at the case again. He was in court 2000. Take us through court. Take us through after the verdict. What happens? What's on your mind? Give us a rundown of that scenario.
Okay, well, the court seemed like it lasted a long time, but in reality, it really wasn't that long. They had to change the venue from Lawrence County to Brunswick, Georgia, which is down below Savannah, Georgia. So we all went to there, and yeah, it was tough because here's a man sitting there that killed my son. He's 2 rows in front of me, and I couldn't do nothing. There's a lot of things I wanted to do, but I couldn't. And I got kicked out of court the second day of court because I was staring at the man. He felt intimidated, and his attorneys bitched to the judge. So they kicked me out of court the second day. And so I left the courtroom. Well, I come back the next day. I had 3 deputies from the sheriff's department in Brunswick sitting around me, because this guy was afraid I was going to come up and attack him. So I had a deputy sitting in front of me, a deputy behind me, and a deputy to the right of me. And anytime I moved in the pew, they moved with me. It was like choreographed dancing. So we sat there, and then they showed Kyle's video, the actual dash cam. They probably showed it throughout the course of the trial 4 times. And the guy's attorneys said that during the trial that Kyle treated Brandon like shit, and that he disrespected him. Brandon was in the service and was tired of taking orders from anybody. And he thought he had a flashback that Kyle was a Viet Cong. Now, granted, here's a guy coming up in a marked patrol car, 6'1", 6'2", with a baseball cap on that said sheriff. How do you get Viet Cong out of that?
Well, you said earlier that he was looking for a cop to kill. How did that come out?
Well, matter of fact, he had stopped for breakfast that morning, and he stopped at a Huddle House, and the waitress asked him, "What you fitting to do today?" And he says, "I'm fitting to kill a cop today." She thought he was just bullshitting. Well, she testified to it in court. He just sat there and looked at her and then went on. All that went through. But then when it come time for the verdict and the jury went out, I was nervous because they had three choices: death, life with no parole, or life. And they were out, I'm going to say, probably 12 hours, if I'm not mistaken. We come back and we were instructed that no matter what the verdict said, we could not show any kind of emotion. Well, if anybody that knows me knows that's pretty damn hard for me to do.
Right.
And when they said guilty, I kind of like had to bite my tongue and everything else. And it was devastating for his family, but it was, I personally felt sorry for his grandmother because his parents had passed away. And his grandmother came up to me afterwards and she apologized to me. And I felt so bad. I told her, it's not your fault. You didn't do this. Your grandson did. Well, I just feel so bad, And we both stood there, and I'm not going to lie to you. We both stood there and cried. I hugged her neck, and I stayed in touch with her for several years. And I talked to his niece, and she did the same thing. I talked to her for a couple of years, and her husband was a sergeant with the PD up around Atlanta. And here her uncle is a cop killer. And then the grandmother passed away, and I haven't since then. It's probably been maybe 12 years since I talked to either one of them. But it drains you. I honestly can tell you. And then you go back for the sentencing, and they say put him to death. And then I kind of got pissed off because they give him a date 30 days from the time he's convicted, but then he turns right around and appeals it, and then appeals it for years until we go to the execution.
So you told us offline, well, first of all, I can't believe it took a jury 12 hours. It should have taken them about 6 minutes. Watch the video.
Yeah, I agree.
Watch the video. Why 12 hours is ridiculous. Neither here nor there, I guess. So he gets sentenced to death. This thing happens in 2000, the trial, 2 years after the fact. He's executed when, teen? 2015 he's executed, so it takes 15 years before he's executed.
January 13th.
Yeah, so what, 11 years ago? Yeah. What was it like sitting there with the execution, watching that?
It was, even going to the clemency hearing the day before, it's pretty damn scary if you ask me, but going to the prison to go for a death, I don't wish that on anybody. I don't care how Billy Badass you are and how tough you think you are. You walk in there, and when they took us into the prison to a day room, and we all had to wait in there till the governor, did his thing. But they tell you right on the other side of this wall, there's inmates. They're right there. So it gives you a weird feeling, but then going through the hall and then getting on a little van and taking you to the death house, that is the scariest thing I've ever done in my entire life. And then to have to sit there.
Did he make eye contact with you at all?
Yeah, he did. He looked at me. But they tell you before they open the curtains, we can't say a thing. This isn't about us. This is all about him.
Did he make any statements at the end in the hearing or the
day
of?
He said, they asked him if he wanted to say anything to the family. He said, nope, ain't got nothing to say. He says, hurry up and get this over with. I've been waiting 13 years for this. And I thought, you motherfucker.
Wow.
And I said, and it took everything in my power. But I can tell you, without a doubt, lethal injection takes 8 minutes. And you're gone. And then it's like everything kind of like floods you. You go from like this hyper vigilance to where you go like you're in the toilet with emotions and you just feel drained completely. I did for 3 days afterwards. It's unbelievable.
Who all was with you?
Kyle's wife, both kids were there. My wife, Kyle's brother and his sister, and some friends of mine that are in law enforcement with me. And then all the guys that worked with Kyle were there to be so-called witnesses to the effect. And yeah, that was Kyle's wife's mother-in-law was there, father-in-law. We had a pretty good backing of family. Yeah, it was pretty rough. It really was.
So, Kirk, over these years, right, since it's this tragic incident, what have you been doing I know you're going around making sure this memory doesn't die. What is it that you've been doing that's been helping out police officers across the country?
Well, what I do is, and I've been doing it for Kyle about 27 years now, because about a year after Kyle died, I'll take the training. There's a training video out from a company called In the Line of Duty. They made a training video. I take that, and I have for 27 years, go around to academy classes, in-service training, different, anywhere anybody wants me to. And I show Kyle's video, and I let the video do the talking. Nobody knows who I am until after the video. And then I'll walk up, and they just think I'm some regular trainer from some agency until I tell them who I am. And then once I tell them who I am, it's just like the blood rushes from their face. And the first question they ask me is, why are you doing this? How can you do this? How can you watch your son be murdered over and over? And my answer to them and to anybody else is, I don't need the video. It's playing in my head 24/7. And any little thing will set it off, and I know how it feels. So it's not so much talking about tactics. That's you guys' job. You guys are doing it every day. Mine is making people aware that there's other people that are depending on you to come home at night.
All right.
I'm what's left. I'm the one that's got to guard the gate and keep my family safe and explain to them what's going on. So my message most of the time, I'll talk a little bit about what happened in the video, but mainly it's them going home and making memories with their loved ones, because that's all they're going to have if something was to happen. You can say, oh yeah, nothing's going to happen, just like Kyle. Nothing's going to happen. Oh, this won't happen here. It happens everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
My message is make the memories, take the time out, because if you think about it, there's only 86,400 seconds in a day. The majority of that time, you're working. What are you going to do with the rest of that time? Because you can't roll it over. Every night at midnight, the clock starts again. So what are you going to do? Your kids need you just as much as your department needs you.
Kirk, that's a powerful statement. I can remember when I was teaching a lot in the police academy that we would make every recruit carry a picture of someone that they loved more than anyone else, and they would have to carry that picture in a plastic bag, and they would carry that plastic bag in their uniform pocket. And at any time during the academy, any instructor could stop and say, pull your picture out, and you would have to recite the name of the person in that picture. And we did that as a reminder that someone loves you more than anybody else, and somebody
right.
wants you to come home at the end of your shift. And
That's right.
like Mike said, Kirk, I don't know how you do it. I have a daughter and a son, and I don't know how you do it. You are one freaking strong dude to be.
There's times when it's like, no, I have my days where it's just like, leave me alone. I don't want to talk to nobody. I'll get in my truck. I'll drive to Dublin, to Whipple's Crossing, where Kyle was killed. There's a memorial there that we put up along with the sheriff's department. That's where I go to talk to Kyle if I'm having a bad day or if I just want to be left alone. And that's my time with Kyle, me alone. I'll sit on the tailgate of my pickup truck. This might sound corny as hell, but Kyle and I like to drink beer when he was alive. I'll sit there and drink a beer or two and talk to him.
Good for
And
you.
then it makes me feel better. Then I can go to an academy class and tell them, you go home at the end of the day, find your kids, hug your kids, go to their ball games. To hell with work. You're going to come home after 12 hours. Yeah, there's a lot of things on your mind. You got to figure out a good balance to say, okay, when I walk through the door, I'm leaving it at the door. My kids, my wife, my loved ones are now my priority. This other shit I left at the door, I'll pick it up on the way out when I go back next shift.
I mean, what a great message, because, all these agencies now are understaffed. It's overtime. People are forced to work. And sometimes it's forgotten that if they're not healthy mentally or ready to come to work, we're not getting the best out of them, and we want them to come back. So it's that never ending cycle of we've got to get our people right.
Right.
Make sure we understand that family comes first, and not just use that as a tagline and a slogan and all that other stuff, but actually go out there and as police chiefs and sheriffs and leaders, make sure that we're doing things to support that as well. And I know Scott does a good job of it, and you've got programs and everything for families, and it's refreshing to hear more of what you're saying. It's in a terrible incident, but it's a good reminder to everybody.
But it's like also, if a good leadership or good command staff, I've seen where different command staffs will pick one day out of the month. Yeah, you got guys that are on duty that day, but the guys that are off duty, they come with their families. Families of guys on duty that come, and they just hang out, they grill out, they have like a little barbecue where the whole family, the whole sheriff department or police department is together as a family, so that your family doesn't feel neglected, that you're spending so much time with your other family. They include them in it to make them feel part of it. And I like that aspect of it. More agencies need to do something along those lines. But just like you said, there's good command staff and there's command staff that shouldn't be command staff.
So speaking of command staff, Kirk, and I know we're coming up on the clock. You talked earlier during the incident, Kyle struck the coward multiple times with his baton. Kyle had him on the ground, and I think you said Kyle let him up, and that's when you kind of talked about Kyle having to write that letter of apology and hand deliver it and all that bullshit. Is it your opinion that in the middle of all this shit that was going on the side of the highway with this coward, do you believe that Kyle was more worried about getting in trouble than he was about going home?
Yeah, I know. I can tell you 100%. I know my kid. He had just written that letter 2 weeks prior. He had the man on the ground, and he's running this clock through his head saying, if I beat the hell out of this bastard, take him to the jail, bloodied, beat up, am I going to get reprimanded? Am I going to get fired? Am I going back to the jail?
And here's a 22-year-old. Sorry, here's a 22-year-old kid who has a child, whose wife finds out that day that she's pregnant with their second child. In the middle of a gunfight. He's more worried about getting in trouble by the administration than he is about going home at the end of his shift, because let's be honest, in 1998, these jobs were hard to come by, were they not?
Yes, they were.
It's not like it was today. So I think the lesson for leaders are, what's your priorities, right? What's really important?
Yeah.
What's the most important thing, and why we exist is to take care of our people, make sure our people go home. All this other nonsense means nothing when I'm burying a brother or sister. And I think that's a big, big takeaway. Plus the fact you lose 9 deputies, which is about a third or so of their patrol staff.
Yeah.
That's a significant impact that leaders need to remember.
That's right. But a lot of times they don't care about that because they're just worried about the re-election campaign.
Well, we have a lot of go ahead. Sorry.
And it's like with this thing with Kyle. I mean, 2 weeks prior to it, and I've said it for the longest time, The sheriff didn't actually pull the trigger to get Kyle killed, but in my heart, he facilitated it by making Kyle second guessing, pulling his gun out, dropping this bastard, and moving on to the next call.
You know, during that gunfight, Kirk, Kyle yells out, "I'm in fear of my life."
Yeah.
Why do you think he said that?
He's repeating what the bastard said. The bastard said, he's pulling the gun out of the truck, and the bastard's yelling, "I'm in fear of my life." And Kyle said the same damn thing, because everybody said, why didn't Kyle rush the truck when Brandon was pulling the gun out? And I tell him, I know my kid. There was a dog in the truck and Brandon. Kyle's thinking in his mind, can I beat both of them? Can I beat the dog and beat Brandon to get him into custody? And Kyle stayed back because he didn't think he could, because the dog's going to protect the owner. So he'd have to fight them both. And he's unmatched. He's got a 9mm against an M1 carbine. So,
yeah.
See, that's when I start getting hot. When people not second guess Kyle's moves, but put yourself in that situation. 22-year-old, not too long on the road. If you were that age and come across this clown, what would you do at 22 years old?
I always think he's yelling, "I'm in fear of my life," because I knew the backstory. And I always felt like he yells, "I'm in fear of my life," because he wants people on that video to know his state of mind at that moment. Because he knows if I have to use force here and something bad happens, I want people to know that I'm in fear of my life. Like he's almost I always looked at it as he wanted anyone who watched that video to know everything I did was because I was scared. I was in fear of my life.
That's right.
And I didn't want to get in trouble.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. I agree with that 100%. But, he gets shot 10 times. He got shot 9 times, and then Brandon stands over the top of him, puts the M1 carbine in his right eye and says, "Die, motherfucker," and pulls the trigger, and then gets in the car and leaves, or in the truck and leaves. So,
well, Kirk,
yeah,
I'm gonna. I don't say. Everybody who hasn't, if there's anybody who hasn't seen this video, they got to watch the video and they have to understand, to better understand what you and I and Mike are currently talking about. The second thing is the number of folks who have reached out to you over the years and have said, "Hey, your son saved my life," or your son impacted me, or I'm sure you've heard countless stories and scenarios that have been told to you. Is there any story or scenario that someone has told you over the last 28 years
that
there
was one
sticks with you that you could share?
An officer, I was at a convention doing Kyle's thing, showing Kyle stuff, and an officer come up to me and said that he pulled over a car on the interstate, I-95, around Savannah. And he said the driver got out of the car and started walking back to him. And they talked, and the guy said he left his license in the car. He said, "I'll go back and get it." Well, the guy started to walk away, and all of a sudden the deputy said, something clicked in my head, said, "Don't let him go." And he said, "Well, hold on, I'll get it." And he went to the car to get the man's license. The man said, "It's sitting right there on the console." When he went back, right next to the driver's seat, stuck down in between the driver's seat and the center console, was a 9mm. And it was loaded. It was ready to go. And it had one in the tube, and he was ready to fire. So he just turned around and arrested the guy right there because he had no permit, none. It was illegal at that time. And he told me, if it hadn't been for Kyle's video and that popping in my head, I wouldn't be here right now. So that one has stuck with me for 27 years.
And Kirk, think how many others you haven't talked to, haven't run across, that have had those same things, have heard that same scream, that same video run through their mind. I know I've heard it, and times when you're on a call, there's a few things that stick out, and that's one of them. some are your life experiences, some are the videos and the training you've had, but
Right.
his impact will never be able to be measured.
I'm sure there's plenty of them that I don't know of that maybe someday I'll run across them and they'll tell them to me. But that particular one stuck out the most to me. I mean, he was a young deputy and not as young as Kyle, but it was impactful to know that that video popped in his head in that split second to make him realize, don't let this man go back to the car. And it saved his life. So I'll chalk that one up as a win. And then, like I told you before, that I believe wholeheartedly that you die twice. You die when you physically die, but then you really die when nobody talks about you anymore. Nobody carries on your memory. Then you're truly gone. And as long as I got breath in me and I'm able, I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing just to keep
Kirk,
saving as many as I can.
and if it's any consolation, even after you're gone, anybody who knows anything about police training needs to carry Kyle's case on and on and on and on and on, because like we've already said, and you just talked about it, those stories that you heard, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of these scenarios that occur every day in this country where someone makes a stop, they get a gut feeling, something says, I don't know about this, and they think about Kyle. So
yeah. And I believe that. I mean, it makes me feel good to know that Kyle didn't die in vain, that he's still doing what he loved to do, and that's policing. And he's still kind of like saving people that he didn't even know. And that makes me feel good.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, Kirk, listen, we're coming up on almost an hour. I appreciate you taking time out of your day to have this interview. This means so much to me, having, again, showed Kyle's video to thousands of recruits and tens of thousands of cops across this country. I'm going to keep his memory alive and keep talking about. Absolutely. And I hope our listeners will keep it alive and keep spreading the message.
I appreciate you guys having me. Been a blast.
I wish we had some video. Maybe we will. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens.
Maybe you will. Yeah.
Unbelievable, just the way you carry yourself and the way you carry on after an event like this. And again, we really appreciate you kicking off 2026 on our podcast. It's going to be tough to top. So we appreciate it.
I'm sure you guys will find somebody to top it.
Kirk, if it's okay with you, if anyone wants to maybe reach out to you, maybe have you come speak at an event, they can get a hold of me and I can put them in touch with you.
And that'd be perfectly fine. The more the merrier.
Awesome.
I'm always available. I got nothing but time and I'm selling it. So let's go.
Well, Kirk, I really appreciate you coming on, man. Really
All right, brother.
Appreciate
I appreciate you guys. You guys stay safe. Make those memories. Remember, make those memories.
Yes, sir. That's an order.
Perfect. Thank you.
We'll talk to you later.